Okay, hi, this is Greg McIntyre. Welcome to our weekly Lunch with a Veteran. I have, you get lunch with two veterans today. I'm a veteran of the U.S. Navy and also elder law attorney and certified attorney through the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs. We do benefits for seniors, aid and attendance benefits, things like that. And I wanted to bring to you a weekly series that showcases our vets in the area. Nobody's doing that. And all their stories are amazing, and I don't want them to be forgotten. So this is Evan Thompson. He is a veteran of the U.S. Army, and also my father-in-law. Just a disclaimer out there. And Evan, great to have you here.
Good to be here, Greg.
And you're not just a veteran. You also are very active. You're the post commander of Post 82 in Shelby, North Carolina, American Legion.
That's correct.
And very active. And you are district deputy commander?
No, district commander.
District commander
Right.
of the Western District of North Carolina. Is that correct?
Well, basically it covers two counties of North
A
Carolina.
couple counties in
Right.
Western North Carolina? Okay.
Right.
Okay. And, well,
And
thank
I'm
you
also
for
a veteran of the Marine Corps, active duty time in the Marine Corps, spent time in the Air National Guard, spent time in the Marine Corps Reserves, Army Reserves, active Army. That covers about all of it.
Okay, so I missed a couple of things there. Active duty Marines, Army, Air National Guard, and Army Reserve.
Right. And Marine Reserve.
And Marine Reserve. That's pretty impressive. That's a lot of military activity there.
23 years.
That's a career in the military.
23 years.
23 years. And you're retired from the
I'm retired. I retired actually from the Army.
From the Army.
As
Okay.
Command Sergeant Major.
What made you, and you have a beautiful daughter, by the way.
Yes, I do. You happened to marry her.
I did. We have 6 children together. So I was very lucky. I'm very blessed.
That's right.
So what made you want to join the military?
Well, I didn't actually join. I was in college from 65 to 69, and they were still drafting individuals at that time.
Mm-hmm.
And so also during that time, they put out this test that you had to take, which determined whether you could stay in college or they were going to draft you.
Is that the ASVAB or something?
No, it wasn't the ASVAB. It was another special test, and it was eventually ruled unconstitutional, as a matter of fact.
Right.
And so it was never actually used. But then they came up with a lottery system, and they drew dates of the year out, and depending on when your date of your particular birth date was drawn out,
Mm-hmm.
that was when you were in line to be drafted in the military. Well, I was the fortunate recipient of having my number drawn number 12. So
Okay.
therefore I was very, very.
You won the lottery.
Yeah, I won the lottery big time. So I was so close to being drafted. So I volunteered for the draft.
Mm-hmm.
I was still in college at the time, but I went down, had a preliminary physical, and went back to college. Well, I had 3 months of college left, and all of a sudden I get this letter, greetings, we want you now. So I sent a letter back to my local draft board, and I said, well, I'm not doing this. I have 3 months left. I'm going to graduate from college,
Mm-hmm.
and then I'll be glad to come.
Right.
So I graduated on May the 9th in 1969, and I was drafted on June the 9th, 1969.
So they let you finish college.
They let me finish college.
Good for them.
And so then...
I've made hard stands in the military and not come out so
not so
great.
good.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
at least I wasn't in the military yet.
Well, I was already in.
Right.
I'll tell you a story about that.
So anyhow, I got down to Charlotte at the entrance examination station called AFES, the Army... I don't know if it's AFES or what it's called. I can't recall now. But anyhow, I got down there, and sometime during the day, they said they were going to take 2 Marines today, or they wanted volunteers for the Marine Corps.
Mm-hmm.
And nobody volunteered. So the day went on, and about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, all of a sudden, my name is called, along with this other young man, I still remember his last name, it's Goins, G-O-I-N-S.
Mm-hmm.
They called his name and my name. He was from up around Blowing Rock or Boone. And we went up front, and there was this lieutenant. I still remember his name, too. It was Lieutenant Strange.
Was it Lieutenant Dan?
No, it was Lieutenant Strange.
Lieutenant Dan.
So anyhow, he said to us, said to both of us, he said, well, guys, he said, you've been chosen to go to the Marine Corps. I'm sure you'll make good soldiers. Go over there and get processed in. And I looked at him. I thought, you crazy. You're absolutely crazy, man. So I went back and sat down for a minute.
I had to think about it.
I had to think
What
about it.
just
I thought,
happened
no,
here?
this can't be happening to me. So anyhow, I went back and sat down. Then finally I walked over to this lady, you know, and she said, oh, you're going to be in the best branch of service anyway.
The Marines?
Right. I was drafted in the Marines. So I wanted to say to her, how do you know? You've never been there. But I didn't, because I was shocked. I was absolutely shocked. So anyhow, they took all the Army guys. They swore us all in that day.
Mm-hmm.
Then they took all the Army guys and they put them on a bus and sent them to Fort Jackson, South Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
But they didn't have enough Marines yet to send down to Parris Island. So we got to spend the night in Charlotte at an old hotel called the White House Inn.
Mm.
And I still remember that night. I called my mother, and she said, "Where are you?" I said, "I'm in Charlotte." You know, I said, She said, "Why are you there?" I said, "Well, I've been drafted in the Marine Corps." And I remember her words, and I laugh about them today. She said, "Oh, they'll kill you." So that was really funny to me at the time. You know, I thought, no, they're not going to kill me. So anyhow, the next day they put us on the bus and went down to, well, later the next day actually, because we got into Parris Island during the night.
I've seen this movie.
Right.
An Officer and a Gentleman or something like that?
Well, kind of like that.
Okay.
Kind of like that. Yeah, it was pretty rough. You know, you get off the bus and they come on the bus first.
Full metal jacket, one of those.
And they were hollering at you and calling you all kinds of names and telling you better get off that bus and get on those yellow footprints. And so then it all started.
They shave your head?
And oh yes, they shaved their head.
Right.
And that's why today I swore that if I ever lost all my hair, I would get a toupee, because I never want to look like that again.
Mm-hmm.
But halfway through basic, when we had about 1/4 inch of hair, they shaved it again.
I was a knob. They call me a knob.
A knob.
A knob, yeah.
So anyhow,
All of us, they call us knobs.
yeah. But I had another interesting experience out of basic training, or during basic training actually. I was given a set of orders about midway through basic training that said that I was going to Fort Sill, Oklahoma, to become an FO. Well, I didn't know what an FO was at the time, but of course I learned that was a forward observer. And I had heard about forward observers. So
That sounds like you go ahead of everyone.
That's right. And they had a
yourself.
short lifespan. Short lifespan. So I thought, oh my gosh.
I want to be the rear observer.
Yeah,
The back
same here.
Yeah.
But anyhow, when I had gotten to Parris Island that very first or second day,
Right.
they asked some of us if we wanted to take a typing test.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I volunteered to take a typing test because I had just gotten out of college.
Why not?
And I had typing in college, and I had typed all my term papers and all those kinds of things. So anyhow, the day I was graduating from basic training down at Parris Island, my drill sergeant called me up to the front of the room, or in the middle of the bay, and he said, "Private Thompson," he said, "where are you going when you leave here, or when you leave Camp Geiger?" I said, "Going to Fort Sill, Oklahoma, sir, and then on the Westpac, because that's what it was called, Western Pacific."
Yeah,
You go to
same thing
Vietnam.
now.
And you did the same
I
thing.
wasn't going to Vietnam, but anytime you go on a West Coast cruise, you're going to Westpac.
Going to Westpac.
East Coast cruise is the East Pac.
That's right.
Yeah.
So anyhow,
And the Marines are really in the Navy anyway, so there you go.
well, I don't know if they're really in the Navy, but anyhow, so he said, "No, you're not going there." And I said, "Oh, yes, I am." He said, "No, sir, no, you're not, Private." And he said, "No, you're coming back to Parris Island." Well, that really deflated me, because I thought, I have spent enough time at this
You're
this
geared
place.
up and ready to go.
You know, I do not want to I don't want to come back to Parris Island.
Right, right.
So, but anyhow, what happened, I got a set of orders. After I finished infantry training, I got a set of orders back to Parris Island, where I went to admin school. So I spent my whole time in the Marine Corps sitting in an office every day down in Beaufort, South Carolina, which was a Marine Corps air station. So anyhow, that was my first 2 years in the military. And I was very fortunate I didn't have to go to Vietnam. I had the opportunity right near the end of my 2 years I did get a set of orders to Vietnam, but I didn't have enough time left to execute the orders
Right.
without extending. And so I didn't want to extend. Everybody talked about lifers like they were, really bad people. So
Yeah, lifers call them that in the Navy too.
yeah, that's what they call us. If you decided you were going to stay in,
Sure.
everybody gave you the nickname of lifer. So I didn't want to be a lifer, and which was a big mistake at the time. I wish I had.
If I was a lifer, I'd already be retired.
That's
I
right.
could have taken partial retirement this year
Absolutely.
and been drawing a pension. Still could have got my law degree.
That's right.
I could have practiced probably while I was in.
Sure could have. Join Judge Advocate Corps.
I could have done that, or I could probably practice outside in the regular civilian court if I wanted to.
That's right.
Or at least hold, have an office or whatever.
Sure.
Could have been, of counsel to a firm or something. There's a lot of options I could have
A
had.
lot of options.
I couldn't see it at that time.
Yeah.
I thought it was, and then I had to get out after 4 years and go do my own thing.
Oh, I know. That's what I felt like I had to get out. But I got out, and the very day I got out, I went back to graduate school and got my master's.
Mhm.
My brother talked me into joining the Air National Guard.
Mhm.
Big mistake. Big
Okay.
mistake.
Okay.
I had been a Marine. I had not been I used to call them sissy flyboys.
You weren't a member of the Chair Force?
Because,
No offense to the Air Force.
yeah, no offense to the Air Force either. I think they're the greatest paramilitary organization there is.
Sure.
So I kid everybody about that. I call it a paramilitary organization. But me and the Air National Guard didn't really get along too well because they just weren't disciplined enough. They weren't their uniforms weren't strike enough for me because the Marine Corps, you always have a good-looking uniform. You always keep it nice, clean,
Right.
pressed. Air Force wasn't that way, or Air National Guard wasn't that way. So after a year, I told them goodbye and I went to the Marine Corps Reserve. All the while, I was still in graduate school too.
I'm going to have to bring on somebody from the Air Force to represent the Air Force.
That's right. They're gonna have to tell us
And
about that.
I may I remind you, you were actually a member of the Air National Guard. So there.
So anyway, I spent about a year in the Marine Corps Reserves and pulled at least one annual training with them. And then I still recall that annual training. I went down to Camp Lejeune, and if you think about it, I was a civilian at the time because I was in graduate school, and I went to check into my barracks down there for the 2 weeks I was going to be there, and there was this first sergeant saw me, and he said, "If you're going to live in my barracks, boy, you're going to get a haircut." And I just looked at him. I thought, well, and then I said to him, I said, "Well, I'm just not going to live in your barracks." So I went out and got me a place out in town and lived out there, and just came in and worked my 2 weeks in the office there at Camp Lejeune, and then went back home. Well, after about a year, I had a friend here in Shelby that said, "Hey, why don't you join the Army Reserves?" So I said, okay. So I joined the Army Reserves, and the nice thing about joining the Army Reserves is that I got ranked so much faster. When I joined the Marine Corps Reserves, I became Sergeant E5, and then I got to the Army Reserves, and about 6 months later, I became a Staff Sergeant. About another 6 or 8 months later, maybe a year, I became Sergeant First Class.
Mhm.
And then after another year or two, I was put into a First Sergeant's position. And couldn't be promoted to First Sergeant because I didn't have enough time in service yet.
Mhm.
So anyhow, I followed that through and then finally was promoted to First Sergeant. And then I thought, well, I'd like to become a Sergeant Major. Well, the Army had just started a program out in Fort Bliss, Texas. It's called the Sergeant's Major Academy.
Mhm.
And they were putting a requirement on everyone, if you were going to make Sergeant Major, you had to go to that academy. So I went to Fort Bliss, Texas to Sergeant's Major Academy and became a Sergeant Major. And then ultimately, during the time I was in the Army Reserve, I went on active duty on 2 different occasions. I went on active duty down at Fort Jackson, and I was first sergeant of a basic training company
Mhm.
in the 2nd Battalion down there. And anyhow, that was the hardest work I've ever done in my whole life. We worked on the average of 100 to 105 hours a week, every week. And that was something I didn't really enjoy that much. It was great to see those young kids, become soldiers, but it was tough duty because you didn't get any sleep. You were always watching over those guys and gals because I had a platoon of females also, and so that was a tough job. And then later on, I went back on active duty with the Army. Another time, I went to Anniston, Alabama, and I was first sergeant of, I was sergeant major. Or was I first sergeant at the time? I can't recall which rank I was, but I was either first sergeant or sergeant major of the NBC school. And that was an interesting, very interesting experience because you're down there amongst all those nuclear, bacterial, and chemicals, because that's the school, that's the home of the NBC school, nuclear, bacteria, and chemical warfare school. So anyhow, all that was real interesting, and then finally I became a brigade sergeant major down at Fort Jackson, and that's where I retired from. So I had a very diverse career, had a lot of interesting events in my life, and I still have friends that I keep in contact with.
In the meantime, though, you got your education.
All right. In the meantime, I got my education.
You got what? How many degrees?
Well, I have an associate's, a bachelor's, a master's, an EDS, and about halfway through a doctorate.
And you have you've been a professor?
I've been a professor. I've been a college dean. What else have I done? I've done all kinds of things.
Sure.
I've had a very, very interesting life.
And the military helped pay for that education?
That's right. That's right. And while we're talking about that, the military did pay for the education. And the reason that came about, I need to put a plug in here for the American Legion. The American Legion is the organization responsible for bringing about, it was called the Soldiers Adjustment Act, which ultimately became the GI Bill. And the American Legion is responsible for presenting that before Congress and ultimately getting it passed. And many military people have
Me included.
Have had the advantage of the GI Bill in getting their education.
Not just the GI Bill, but when you're active duty, at the time, the Navy would pay for 2/3 of the classes, the tuition for classes I took while I was enlisted.
Right.
While I was in the military, while I was in the Navy.
Oh yeah.
Which was huge. And Clep Test, there's a test for almost any college class out there.
Yeah, CLEP means College Level Examination Program.
Correct. And if you test well on that, you can receive credit for the class. Now you can challenge. This comes, I think, even back in ancient Greece, I guess, when that was all coming about. You could challenge your professor, I think, and you can still do that in any college. If it's true at a true university, you should be able to walk into a class, challenge your professor, and test out of that class and get core competency for that class. Demonstrate core competency. A CLEP test is, I think, in that vein. You can take that test and demonstrate competency in that class and get a grade for that class.
Right.
I think I got like 23 or 26 credits, something like that, undergrad.
Just by doing that
test. I would buy so anybody out there looking at how to put your college career together, or undergrad together, I would do a lot of this while I was on a boat, like on an aircraft carrier, on a cruise for 6 months, sitting in the Middle East, or something, and or on shore, I would do it too. But I'd buy the book, I'd buy the textbook off like Amazon or something. Just get some used textbook for world history.
Right.
Maybe a few of them. I'd read them. Take all the tests at the end and commit them to memory, note card them or something. Then I'd go take the test and make a good grade on the test, and that'd be my college credit for that.
That's right.
I probably studied more for those daggone tests than most undergrads do the first couple of years in college.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure.
But I had the time, and in my spare time, right when I wasn't working, that's what I did. Is I committed myself to education. And they got plenty. There's departments. I was in the Navy, so there's an education department on the base and on the ship, and that travels out with them. And they were very, you know, they were happy to help me do anything I needed to do, you know, to further my education. And I had an idea in mind how I wanted to put it all together in the end,
Right.
in a degree package, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And any college that's affiliated with the military also accepts transfer credits. There's some kind of contract they have to accept transfer credits. And there's a ton of colleges out there that are affiliated with the military.
Oh, absolutely.
Friendly to the military.
Absolutely. But
There is no excuse for somebody to say that they didn't have the money or couldn't get their education.
that's right. Yeah. When I first, before I ever went to the military, I graduated from high school in 1965, and didn't know what I was going to do. Actually, about 3 months before I graduated, I had a neighbor of mine say. He said to me, "What are you going to do when you graduate from high school?" I said, "Well, I think I'm just going to join the Air Force and, you know, do whatever I can do in the Air Force." And he said, "Why don't you go to college?" Well, I came from a very, very poor family.
Sure.
I had no money to go to college.
Right. My dad's similar story.
And so, anyhow, but he said, "Well, why don't you apply to this college?" There's two colleges, Warren Wilson College and Berea College. These are two colleges that will allow you to work and pay your way as you go. Well, I applied to both of them, and I got accepted to both of them. Now, this is 3 months before I graduated from high school. So, anyhow, fortunately, I was able to get my bachelor's degree, and when I graduated, I owed $400. You know,
That's
today
impressive. That is impressive.
most students would be very, very happy to end their graduate and owe $400. Many come out of undergraduate school owing thousands and thousands of dollars. But then I was fortunate when I got out of the Marine Corps, I went right back to get my graduate degree. I used the GI Bill.
That's what I did with law school.
And so that's why I praise the American Legion so much, because they are such a great organization, and they have helped veterans to such a large degree. Our veterans healthcare system that we have, and I know there's a lot of complaints about it, but at least we have it. And there are a lot of elements about it that are very, very good. I personally have never had any tremendous problems with it.
I agree. I mean, you know, I'm lucky to have it. I've lodged, well, I have complained about it,
Sure.
but I'm lucky to have it.
Right.
And that's a lot of veterans will do that. You know,
Sure
you
they
complain about it, right?
Right.
Or I'll complain about it, but man, I'm very grateful I have it.
Absolutely.
Does that mean that I shouldn't work to improve it? I want to work to improve it.
Sure. But there again, the American Legion is the organization
Right.
that was responsible for getting the VA healthcare system started.
Right. The American Legion needs younger vets to come in too and get it.
That's right. That's one of the big
get
things we need
involved.
right now. So many of the members of the American Legion are older veterans. Most of them are right now are Vietnam era. That's the largest population in the American Legion. But we need Persian Gulf. We need Iraq.
Persian Gulf and Iraq veterans and Persian Gulf veterans need the American Legion too.
That's right.
When you look at the, coming back and just getting back in, assimilating back into society, going to college with a bunch of kids who have not been in the Middle East, maybe getting shot at or whatever was going on over there, and camping out in the desert. And that's a big difference coming back.
Oh yeah, and absolutely.
And the American Legion can help with that. is what I'm saying.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. And
Just the
veterans-
camaraderie, coming in, feeling like you initially belong, right?
That's right.
And I
That's
guarantee you,
right.
your
Yeah.
Vietnam vets are going to understand.
Yeah, and American Legion knows that things are different.
That pepper squirted halfway across the table.
The culture is obviously different between a Vietnam veteran and a Persian Gulf veteran, and we know that, and we realize that. And I know that Persian Gulf veterans they don't want to come into the American Legion and hear a bunch of war stories from a bunch of old fellows back from Vietnam. But
I'll tell you what, just talking about it, being able to talk it out, relate, being able to be with people who understand what you went through, then, or where you're coming from. I mean, that could be the difference, literally, between life and death for some veterans.
That's
I mean,
right.
Look at the suicide rate of veterans coming
right,
back. from
suicide rate today for veterans is about 20 per day.
That's crazy. It's crazy.
And that is absolutely horrendous.
Yeah.
That's terrible. But it's happening. And in 2014, there were 50,000 homeless veterans. So something's got to be done. And the American Legion is working very hard to try to change all this and do as much as they can. But our commander goes before Congress once a year to try to lobby for veterans and try to get the things that get the laws and policies changed to help veterans all the time. And that's another reason why all veterans ought to think about becoming a part of a veteran service organization, because these veteran service organizations are out there to help veterans. That's what they're all about. And so I preach it all the time. I love the American Legion. I love what it stands for. I love the things it's trying to do. And I encourage any veteran to become a member of the American Legion. You know, I think it's the best, but
you want to come back and look at how to get plugged into your community too. How to, have a prosperous career in your community. How to have a family in your community. Plug into groups like American Legion, and you'll automatically have, a ton of people in your network. How many people are in the local American Legion, Shelby?
Well, our local post has about 200 and close to 250 members.
250 members, and not all of them come to every meeting. But we do have 50 plus people there every meeting.
We have 50, 60 every meeting.
That's right.
So you've got a lot of people to network with, and that's another good thing about the American Legion is the networking. And then we also have programs every month now to give veterans information not only about the American Legion but about the community itself. We've got in January Craig McClendon coming to tell us about the employment opportunities for veterans and what he can do for them and help them to be employed. So there's a lot of good things
do you think you might have a little bit of wisdom to impart on a young man coming out of the military from the Middle East?
I would hope so. I would think I would. I think so.
Off the top of your head, hey, you need to get an education, right?
Right.
If you're interested in doing that, I don't care if it's this is what I tell university or trade, you can do it, and you can do it with benefits from the military. And I did it. It doesn't matter if you're going to be a welder or you're going to apply something you learned in the military.
Absolutely.
Locally, refine that, and I don't know. There's just, I wish I could.
Yeah,
I wish I could fix everything.
Yeah. Well, I wish I could go back and maybe change some of the things I did. And maybe I would do them differently and do them better.
Right.
And I wish I were younger so I could, and I had this knowledge that I have today, so I could use it back then to help a lot of people. But
that is the benefit of me talking to you or in joining an organization like American Legion, is young people or other people can have the benefit of your knowledge, right?
Right.
You can't go back and talk to yourself.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. You can't go back and tell yourself.
I wish I could do that too.
Yeah. But it won't work. Doesn't work. All those mistakes we made, we made them, and they're there, and they're not going away.
I made plenty of mistakes, too many. But just for example, around the time that before I married your daughter, but she had come out to visit me for a little bit, and I had decided. You said that the military let you wait to be drafted.
Yeah.
Until you graduated. I was getting ready to take the GMAT, which is a test to go to MBA school.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
At San Diego State University is where I was taking. And I wanted to roll out of the military and go directly into law school. I also wanted to get my MBA. I did that. It just took a couple of years longer than I wanted.
Right.
The chief, not a nice person, okay? He ended up being, all right, wanted me to go to this firefighting school, okay? I had been to this firefighting school like 50 times, all right? I had lots of sea time in at that point, okay? And so anyway, and I should have gone to the firefighting school, by the way. But it conflicted with the GMAT. And I had paid for the GMAT, and I was supposed to take the GMAT, Okay.
Right.
So I went and took the Jeep. I talked to the chief ahead of time. Come on, chief. He wouldn't let me off. I went and took the Jeep. He was not happy with me.
He was not happy.
He was not happy with me. He confined me to base. And I didn't live on base. I lived out in town in San Diego, okay? He confined me to base for 30 days. And anyway, long story short, I ended up getting married while I was confined to base in San Diego, okay? I'm just telling you. To your daughter, all right?
My daughter.
Yes, yes. So the Navy wasn't that flexible with my education, okay?
Right. Well,
Was not that flexible with my education.
I was determined I was not going until I graduated from college.
Yeah.
Because I thought, why waste 3 3/4 years and then not get that last semester in?
Well, it was my boneheaded and headstrong, stupid decision to do that, okay?
Yeah.
And in hindsight, I'd like to go back and tell myself, go to the firefighting school,
Yeah.
okay? Then come back and take that test, all right? Take it later. Take it when you get out. Which is what I ended up doing, right?
Right, you did it anyway.
Yeah. I ended up, your daughter and I, when we got out, we moved to Raleigh for a couple of years, and then I worked, programming computers and stuff. And then ended up going on to law school and get my MBA after working for about 2.5 years
Right.
after getting out, which worked out just fine, right? So, but at the time, I thought I had to take it that day.
Oh yeah, well we all.
And I disobeyed my superior, which was not good.
Not a good idea.
No, it was not a good idea. I got yelled at a lot.
Yeah.
And he was a big guy. He always wore a hat. And I probably still have like a scar right here where he would, just sitting there talking to me, hit me with the bill of that daggum hat. He ended up, by the way, being a friend of mine. Okay?
Yeah.
He ended up being a friend of mine. And because after Steph and I were married, I was leaving. I was going on a 6-month cruise to the Middle East after that. Okay, so he came to our wedding.
Oh, did he?
He did. He came to our wedding and hung out with us and ended up, after he chewed my butt. Okay.
Right.
And for not listening to him. I think he understood too a little bit
Sure.
what I was trying to do. Okay, that I wasn't a lifer, right? I wasn't in it for
Right.
life, but I was serious about my job and what I did. I was not a firefighter, by the way. I worked on E2C Hawkeye electronic equipment, okay, which is electronics for avionics.
Right.
But if there was a fire, I needed to know how to put it out. I did know it, by the way.
Oh yeah.
But live and learn, right?
Absolutely.
Well, we've been at it about 30 minutes. Thank you for tuning in to Lunch with a Veteran. This has been Evan Thompson. Thank you so much. I appreciate
Thank you, Greg.
it. I hope that
I enjoyed it.
I
Enjoyed talking about the military.
I enjoyed
my
talking
story.
about the military too, and also
And plugging the American Legion.
and education for the military.
And education.
Even though the Navy, my chief at that time, did not respect my wishes to take that test, I was wrong, and I should have waited to take that test. But the Navy did supply me with all those Clep tests for free. You don't have to pay for those.
Right.
That's like almost a year of college free that I got from those. And then also 2/3 of all the rest of my undergrad for the most part while I was in, it paid for. And then it paid for the GI Bill, which was around $1,000 a month for the 3 years that I was in law school, and I got my MBA when I was there too. And I borrowed a lot of money too, so I did it all.
Right.
But if somebody tells me they can't afford to go to school or they can't do it,
Right.
that's a bunch of junk.
Right.
You know?
There's a lot of opportunity.
I agree.
Lot
Thank
of
you.
opportunity.
Thank you for tuning in. And sorry for my eating habits. You get to see my poor eating habits too. That was fun.
That was fun.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it.